Good Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome back here to Let's Talk Live on the LTL Media Channel. I hope everybody had an amazing Sunday. And it was an amazing Sunday here in the state of Massachusetts, across Rhode Island and New Hampshire. And we'll talk about, my voice cracked. Oh, we'll talk about the Free Karen Read standouts today, which were, oh my God, I had a smile on my face all day long. And we will get into that just here in a minute. So welcome in, smash that like button as you come in. And if you feel that you want to donate to the stream here, you can. I have a link attached to the chat. And if you send a Cash App or a Venmo and you can put a message in there, I will read it during the live show. So very excited to be back here again with two of my most recent friends that I've met here through the platform. And we're going to get into Sandra Birchmore again today and talk about her most recent hearing. And I know Mizzy and Suzanne are like so engrossed in this case. I said it would be a great stream to have them come on and kind of walk us through the Birchmore hearing today. And then we have another Sandra hearing coming up on Tuesday. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stream that live as I do have work. But maybe I can obtain a recording of it and we can go through it at some point here on the channel, because we want to keep keeping this case alive, because it is very relevant, and it's very relevant to what's going on in Karen's case as well. So, you know, to kind of meld the two together, I think it serves a huge purpose. And we did a stream about that the last time I had Mizzy and Suzanne on, and we talked about that. But I don't want to wait too much longer. I'm going to bring the ladies in tonight on the panel and welcome them back here to Let's Talk Live. First, I'm going to bring in Mizzy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Nice to have you back. Long time no see.
Thank you. I know.
We have Suzanne. Welcome in. How are you?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us.
How's your Sunday?
It was a hot one.
It was hot. Yeah, it was very hot. And speaking of hot, you know, we were out today in Dighton, Massachusetts, supporting the Free Karen Read movement. And we had a very pleasant surprise at the end of today. And I know a lot of people in and around the Dighton, Massachusetts area. I think we had Karen Read actually show up. I think she showed up in Taunton. She went by Raynham and Dighton today, which was an amazing experience. And it was just really great. I mean, to see her show up and watch the smile on people's faces, you know, some people that can't make it to the courthouse, but can make it out to these Free Karen Read standouts and be in their local area to support her. But for her to actually be there out of a court setting and just be real in front of everybody and really take the time to talk to everybody was just really amazing. So let's do this. I have some photos from the standout today. If you all didn't get to see them, I know I posted them everywhere, but we'll bring those up really quick and go through them. Just do this. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, these are great. So we showed up in Dighton, Massachusetts. I love this. So the funny thing about this, if you look at Tracy Murray, all the way it will be to my left, maybe everybody's right. So when we take the picture, her sign is actually backwards. And she goes, I think my sign is backwards. So I saved you a little bit there, Tracy. I put a hashtag Free Karen Read up there for you. And it was funny. I posted this and earlier today, and she put under the caption, she's like, my sign is the best, because it was just a blank black picture. But it was everybody, and that wasn't everybody that showed up on Dighton. This was a little bit earlier today, but it was such a great standout. And I'll just take everybody through kind of a slideshow. This is earlier on today. We hit all four corners out in Dighton, Massachusetts at 1:38, and I'm probably going to forget the crossroad, because I did. And I kept saying that during the live stream I had going today. I'm like, where's the crossroad? Where's the crossroad? But anyway, we were out in Dighton today, out near the post office, right up the street, actually, from the Dighton Police Department, which was great, and a lot of the great people. And it was nice to see all the smiles on everybody's faces. It was hot outside. It was hot. It was weird. It wasn't hot in the sense of like the sun or temperature-wise. It was the humidity. And I think it was like 90% or 95% humidity today. And we were dying. And I commend every single person that went out today and stood in that heat for 2-3 hours and rallied for Karen. I really appreciate that. And I know Karen appreciates it. Her family appreciates it. And it was such an amazing movement today. And to have all those socials going with, you know, all the photos and the videos that were being posted. I mean, we were all just smiling, reviewing it. It was just so awesome. So we'll take you through here a little bit. I love this, the free Karen Reed sign, and that was out towards the road. So when everybody drove by, you could see it out there in front. And we had Paul Cristoforo, we had Kelly Reed out there. We actually had Channel 10 News that showed up and did a little spot. It was really, really cool to have them come out and hear some of the locals talk and reporters talk. A couple of good ones here of Kelly Reed and Karen and Paul Cristoforo. And it's the great thing that I love about this is you look at Karen's face and she has a smile and she looks relaxed. And it's just really good to see her in that element. And a couple here with me and Karen, which was really nice. So it was really good to spend some time and talk a little bit. And she said that she's very appreciative of everything that we do here on the LTL platform, not only including me, but including all of the audience out there that watches and support this channel and keeps the continued growth, because we want people to know about this case. It's very, very important. So if you are a first-time watcher or subscriber tonight, thank you. And thank you for being here. And I know Karen is really proud of the things that we've done over here. So really good stuff. And then the ending group photo, which is, I love this photo. It's so good. We had a lot of people that showed up from some of the other standouts. And I mean, all those beautiful smiles on everybody's faces. You had Karen's brother there, her father there, and Tom CPU showed up. And there was just a lot of really great people. I think Tom actually kind of followed Karen around today at some of the stops. So that was cool to see. And you got some video of Karen actually thanking a lot of the supporters. So that was really, really cool. And I love it. Let me just get to this $10 super chat. DW, thank you so much. It's a big day. Hope bigger days are coming for both Karen and Sandra. I agree. And thank you so much for supporting that. And so what I'm going to do here is we'll start getting into the Sandra Birchmore portion of the live today. And Mizzy asked me if I could share a flyer, and I wanted to do that. So Mizzy, if you want to take it away and talk about the most recent stand-up that's coming up for Sandra.
Yeah, our next one is August 25th. It's a Sunday. This one's going to be in Canton this time. It's at the Canton Town Hall, that cross section of Sherman and Washington right there. We'll probably do what you guys did today. Try to take, if we get enough people, hopefully enough people show up, we could take all four corners there too. But hopefully we can get a good crowd for that. So if you're around, you have the time, please come join us. We need to get Sandra's case out there as much as we can, especially with we haven't done any in Canton for a long time.
Yeah.
And especially since the announcement of the pathologist, Dr. Bodden's, findings that it was a homicide. So we need to let Canton know that, Sandra was murdered.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get some crowds out there, like the crowds for Karen. This is a very important case. And I don't think people, as much as Karen has that magnitude behind it, this has a very big magnitude behind it. There's a lot of elements in this case. And we talked about this over the last couple of lives that I've had you both on. I mean, people have to realize, there's grooming aspects of this. There's, corrupt police officers that are involved in this. And, you have a young lady that was murdered, and her child was murdered as well, too. And that's, very important that people understand that. So if we can get everybody out, in the droves, like we're doing for Karen, and get some eyes on this case as well, it's very much appreciative, and it's very important as well. And we talked about that in the last stream, kind of melding both those cases together and all the litigating factors that, combined both of them. So it is super important. So again, Sunday, August 25th, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. if you can make it out there at the Canton Town Hall in Canton, Mass. And I'll continue to post this poster on my socials for both of you so we can get some people out there. And if I have that day off, I will join you out there on the 25th. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do this. Let's get to the hearing. I already fast forwarded up to the 5 minutes of kind of all the attorneys chiming in. So it's going to start right at the hearing itself. I'm just going to warn everybody, the audio on the Zoom call was pretty low. If y'all can just turn up your volume a little bit, you're probably going to have it easier time hearing it. And I'll try to boost the sound a little bit. I don't want to overpower it because it does get a little distorted, but we'll try to work on that. And Mizzy, And Suzanne, anytime you want me to pause, please do, because educate us. That's why I wanted to bring you both on today. All right. So can you, before we do that, can you just give us a little bit of a synopsis of what we're going to hear in this hearing? I'll leave the floor to either one of you if you want to take it.
Yeah, so this hearing is pertaining to the civil trial. Basically, the defendants, especially William Farwell, they applied to get the they want everything that they can get from the Attorney General.
Mm-hmm.
They basically want to look into the Attorney General's case, and I believe that they want to know what the FBI is doing even more than what the Attorney General is doing. So basically, this is what's going on. The Attorney General representative is there, and all of their lawyers are there to try to litigate whether or not they're going to get this information.
Mm-hmm. And Matt Farwell's attorneys on that panel as well, too, right?
All three guys.
All of them. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Great.
All the attorneys are on there, but the William Farwell is the one who sort of moved to get all of what all of the other agencies are doing to tip them off to defend themselves better. It's even though it's not necessarily always exciting to listen to civil litigation,
right?
But if we can hear this hearing, okay, there's a lot going on in this hearing.
Yeah, I did notice that.
It's gonna come out in rapid succession, even if it does sound a little, like civil litigation at first. But if you really have a keen ear and eye to it, like we do, there's a lot coming out in this hearing.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand too, if this is kind of first-time watchers or first-time subscribers that are just coming into legal cases. Criminal cases and civil cases are a lot different in the fact of, it's my better understanding that when someone is sued civilly, you're apt to get more information about a case or a specific event and be able to divulge that during the hearing, where a criminal case is a lot of arguments to keep certain pieces of evidence out and evidence in. You saw that a lot in the Karen Reed case, especially to the federal document. Oh, my voice cracked again. The federal documents in the Karen Reed case is pretty much pushed aside, and it's a shame because we need to hear that information. We need to see that information in Karen's case, because I think there is a lot of information in Karen's case that will benefit that. But for whatever reason, the Commonwealth does not want you to hear this, and this judge does not want you to hear this. So with that being said, let's bring up the hearing, and it's probably going to be about 40 minutes or so. So sit back, relax. If you all want to take notes, I would say that as well. And I'll try to, like I said, turn the sound up as best I can. All right, here we go. Let me just put play here. Ooh, there we go. Of course, spinning wheel. I've got to get a direct connection in this studio. It's driving me nuts. All right, come on.
The cog of death.
Yeah, the wheel of death here. Let's see.
I've been having a lot of problems with my internet here.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I apologize, everybody. It will connect here in a second. If not, I'll reload it. So what I did was I actually streamed this before. Here we go. And I just kind of cut myself out of the video and squeezed it over. Let me try to get this screen working. Hang on one second, ladies and gents. Let me just Okay. Perfect.
And I appreciate everybody coming on to listen about Sandra again. It means a lot to us. So thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very important case. All right, let's play this. If you ladies need me to pause, just say pause, and I'll let you talk or add commentary. Right, here we go.
That counts for today as well.
Just let me know how the volume.
I'm also not sure we told him about it for today, so I'm realizing.
But he wasn't going to attend, Your Honor, I think.
$20.
Okay, so he conveyed to all counsel that he wasn't planning on attending the oral argument yesterday?
Yep.
Okay, then you can go ahead and proceed then.
Thank you, Your Honor. For the record, call on 2282 CV01197. The case of Darlene Smith as the personal representative of the estate of Sandra Birchmore versus Matthew Farwell et al. If counsel be so kind as to introduce themselves for the record, starting with the plaintiff's attorney.
Good morning, Your Honor. Stephen Marullo on behalf of Darlene Smith as personal representative of the estate of Sandra Birchmore.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So just so everybody knows, the gentleman that spoke is Sandra Birchmore's family's attorney, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, just want to make sure we're clear because there's a lot of people on the panel.
Morning, Your Honor.
Your Honor, Robert Still on behalf of Robert Devine.
Okay. There's Divine's lawyer.
Good morning.
Morning, Your Honor. This is David Bay on behalf of William Farwell. I'm the moving party.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor. Amy Bratskier for the town of Stoten.
Good morning.
Morning, Your Honor. Attorney Brian Welsh for defendant Matthew Farwell.
Good morning, Your Honor. Lisa Mackey on behalf of the Attorney General's office.
I'm just going to pause here real quick. And I don't know if you're all going to agree with me or not, but I actually like this judge. I wish
Oh,
we could.
we do like this judge.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wish we could get this judge in Karen's case.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead.
Claudine Cloutier.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. She did a great job with this.
Yeah, she did really
And
good.
I want to add, make sure everybody listens to the woman who said she was from the Attorney General's office. That's who you really, really want to be listening to in this hearing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, let's go. We'll play this.
Good morning. All right, so we have everybody now. Thank you again to everyone's flexibility so we could get this rescheduled promptly. I have had an opportunity to read the briefs. I have read several of the cases cited. I hope that will allow you to streamline some of your oral arguments, but why don't I go ahead and let first Mr. Bay argue, and then I'm going to hear from Ms. Mackey and anyone else who would like to argue. I will allow them time. Mr. Bay?
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you for reviewing the briefs, Your Honor. This is a case concerning the death of a Sandra Birchmore, Your Honor. And my client has been, there have been claims against my client, William Farwell, related to that death, Your Honor. What we're looking to do is obtain records from the Attorney General's office concerning any investigations, anything related to that death or investigations related to my client or any of the defendants in this case, as I believe that it's significantly relevant to the facts of this case and to ensure that everyone is aware of all the facts and investigations concerning this case and the death of Ms. Birchmore, as well as the investigation into the defendants. Now, Your Honor, as far as the privileges, the basis for the Attorney General's office for objecting to our motion to compel, I'll address them. As far as the law enforcement privilege, Your Honor, although there has been allegations that there is an ongoing investigation, I understand that that there may be, Your Honor, but we're in a situation here where we're on trial. We're on track for trial, Your Honor. My client has one opportunity to prove his innocence here, Your Honor, and the attorney.
I just want to pause this and answer. JB3 says, why was this done over Zoom? I don't know, maybe you ladies know this. It wasn't done in the courtroom.
There were some people, I believe, in the courtroom, but most of them were on Zoom.
Okay.
It's pretty common in a civil case like this, especially where there's at least one of the defendants is in another state.
Another state, right. Yeah. Okay.
Attorney General's office could go on for years. A murder charge, which is, I would imagine, something they'd be looking into, of course, has no statute of limitations, Your Honor. And that being said, Your Honor, we have an exigent need for these records at this time, so we can evaluate it and analyze what, if any, other defenses my client has to liability, which may be contained in the Attorney General's office records. Therefore, I would suggest that as far as the balancing goes, Your Honor, our need for these records outweigh any law enforcement privilege benefit to the Attorney General's office. That being said, Your Honor, the town of Stoten has produced extensive records in this case, over a terabyte of information, Your Honor.
Information.
And we've been able to do that safely by way of an agreed upon protective order, which all counsel agreed upon and all counsel thus far has abided by. And therefore, Your Honor, I do not see any harm to the Attorney General's office if we're able to all agree, and I would expect that all counsel, which have been reasonable to date, would agree to that protective order. And so therefore, Your Honor, I don't see the harm to the Attorney General's office or the general public for producing these records, Your Honor. Also, Your Honor, as far as the attorney-client privilege, Your Honor, I'm still unclear as to who the client is that the Attorney General is referencing. There is, and I see no prejudice to anyone as far any alleged client in this case for the production of these records. And again, Your Honor, there is again the weighing of the benefits and the weighing of the detriment to my client to not produce these records and the detriment to the Attorney General's office, Your Honor. I would say certainly weighs in our favor for the production, and not just my favor, Your Honor, but the favor of all of the parties in this case, which is why this motion was essentially non-objected to and even assented to by the plaintiffs here, Your Honor.
Can you pause for a sec,
This
Brian?
is information that we all need, not just my client. Your Honor,
Hang on one second.
I would suggest that the work product.
There you go.
Okay, so this one has been bothering me for the last couple days as I've gone over some of the other motions and documents in the court case.
Sure.
I'm listening to Mr. Bray right now. As he's saying that the release of the information is obviously important to all of the clients, one of the aspects of all three of them in maintaining their lack of criminal responsibility, lack of civil and criminal responsibility, is that they all deny working in concert with one another. It's throughout all of the documents and all of the motion to dismiss that they have all done, and it does beg the question: if you're all denying working in concert, how do you all in concert need these documents? I just want to put that out there.
No, that's a good point. No, go ahead, Mizzy.
I was going to have you pause it myself after he was speaking. I understand them needing or wanting most of this work, but he's full of shit when he sits there and says, "This will." Ask Brian how he did. Trying not to be as hot as I came in last time. He's full of shit when he says that this will no in under any way hurt any case against my client or any of the client. Bull crap. Them having a look into the case before the investigation is fully done does hurt the case.
Yeah.
That's why people don't get discovery
right
too early.
No, you're right.
They haven't been charged. You get the discovery after you get charged. And like I said, I fully understand that, when between the civil and a criminal case, you have more leeway. But come on, stop being disingenuous saying that it will no way affect any case against my client. Get the shovel out because you're shoveling something.
And also, Mizzy, to that point is how are there nobody's done anything wrong, but there are criminal charges that are imminent in this case.
Yeah.
So we can continue from there because I just think it was an important point. The whole all three of us need it, but we're not working in concert together, and we didn't work in concert. But yeah, let's carry on.
Obviously they did.
Product privilege is not applicable here, Your Honor. The records we're requesting are not work product. It does not appear from the affidavit of Attorney General Michelle Granda, the information that she's represented that she is in possession of does not appear to be work product, and appears to be simply the investigation, the state police's investigation into this matter. Now, I will say, Your Honor, looking at Michelle Granda's affidavit attached as, I believe, Exhibit 1 to the Attorney General's opposition, Your Honor, there are a number of...
Writes on, says if they did nothing wrong, then why aren't they still working as Stoten cops? It's a good point. It's a really good point. And I just want to note, and I may be wrong, all the way to my right of the screen, the young lady with the white top on, she's from the Attorney General's office, correct? She's the lawyer for the Attorney General. Okay. Because she's going to speak a lot in this case. And I felt that, and I may be wrong, I felt like the AG was just trying to kind of push this under the rug, but you both don't feel that, right? You felt that she had, that she was trying to push the investigation, correct?
Well, it's not just that, not that the fact that they're trying to push this. They want to stop this information from getting to these men. Because if they get this information, they could start their
narrative.
Their narrative, putting up their defense before it's even charged.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And also, I personally think it's not about the AG's office. It's about what the FBI is doing, because the FBI can go after them for trafficking.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Well, no, so Brian was right about initially in earlier on statements by David Trobe and by I think it was Andrea Campbell. They weren't necessarily pursuing an ongoing investigation, and then other shit came out. So here we are. And then we heard about the feds investigating Karen Reed's case, and then ironically, just a few weeks later, like, oh, feds are investigating Sandra Birchmore's case. So I think some shit, like you said, Suzanne, I think some shit just started rolling out, and everybody got a little nervous, and they went, oh, well, maybe we should start complying now because the feds are involved. Well, once it's already out there, you kind of have to call,
right?
And you kind of have to call it. So that's where we're at now. But yes, what Lisa Mackey has to say is going to be of utmost importance.
Great. All right, we'll keep playing here. Just let me know if you all want me to pause.
And I could. This will probably clear some things up. There are a number of items in that paragraph number 6 that the Attorney General's office has identified that we do in fact have, and that we do in fact do not need. We have received Canton Police Department has responded to our keeper of records request. They have produced the information in their possession.
So let me. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to make sure that I'm getting this, because I have the categories of documents laid out as well. Have you received both the incident report and all the supplemental narratives
From the Canton Police Department?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. Yeah, they've
All right, so, okay, go ahead.
Also, Your Honor, as I said, the Stoten Police Department, they have responded, as well as the town of Stoten. So we do not need that to be reproduced again. What we don't have, Your Honor, is these state police records, which, I was surprised to see that was in here, number 6, because we have issued a keeper of records request to the state police in this case. And I received a response. I'm looking at it right now on my computer, and they informed my office on July 11th. Looks like, oh no, sorry. July 11th of 2023, last year, a day ago, that the state police does not have any records in their possession in response to a keeper of records request. So I was certainly surprised when I saw paragraph 6, and it seems to note an abundance of records generated by the state police, as well as the state police that are assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office, that I was unaware of, and I presume that the state police did not have anything based on their representations to my office.
Sure can.
Well, they might be playing a little thing on him, because the Norfolk DA's, the state police unit underneath the Norfolk DA, they're kind of almost a separate thing than the regular state police. When I did a FOIA request on Sandra's case at the beginning, I thought, you just do a FOIA to the state police. I couldn't get anything. They said, I don't have her in the system. I was like, what are you like? What? I shot off this email, like, are you kidding me? You do have her. And then they said, oh, you have to contact this person because it's under the Norfolk DA's office. So I wonder if they're saying, no, the state police don't have anything, but it's the Norfolk DA's office that has something.
Interesting.
Well, actually, Mizzy, I don't mean to take away from that, but they, in the Stoten internal investigative report, they indicate that the state police gave that thumb drive back to them.
Well, there's
the one that's affectionately referred to as the blacklight case.
Yes. It's still considered the state police, but it's kind of like its own little entity. You can't get to FOIA request them. You have to do the FOIA through the the Norfolk DA's office, not the state police.
And we all know how that goes.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Yeah, exactly.
So I wonder if the state police were playing like, well, we don't have it, because that's what they were doing with me.
They're just playing a game.
Yeah, because it's just a division of them that's kind of walled off because it's under the Norfolk DA's office.
Yeah, they're just playing a game. So they're just trying to slow things down, or just say, oh, well, we don't have the records, so you're going to have to go here. It just slows down the process of people getting their hands on those records.
Yep.
I just want to do this before we go back to the stream. Patty Watson, thank you so much. Sent me $11 on Cash App. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, let's keep playing through here and just let me know if you need to pause.
In response to our keep of records request. So that really is it's from what I can tell from Attorney Granda's affidavit, that appears to be the only thing that we don't have on her list of items that she's represented the Attorney General's office has. And what she has listed here is really, it appears to be just, investigative materials that the state police have generated. I'm looking at records related to the welfare check, to the unattended death. And they say that the affidavit states that these records consist of observations and investigative activity of the state police and witness statements obtained during their investigation and forensic evidence. This information, like I said, Your Honor, is relevant and important for not just me, but all of the attorneys on this Zoom to review. Now, Your Honor, I would suggest that we even have a more compelling need for this in light of the most recent disclosure of the plaintiff's expert, Dr. Michael Bodden, who was opined that Sandra Birchmore died at the hands of the defendant, Matthew Farwell.
I'm just going to add something to this, because I remember, Mizzy, you were on with, I think it was Mike Young Jerk's show, and they had a retired FBI agent. And what was the first thing that he said after he saw the video of Farwell coming into the foyer and going into the elevator and then leaving? What was the first thing that he said?
Yeah, she was murdered.
Yeah, she was murdered, and that's the killer. So, I mean,
he said it before I was even introduced to the show. Like,
wow.
I'm just sitting there, and he was like, yep, she was murdered. And I was like, whoa, yeah. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect a law enforcement agent to come up.
And that it would sure as F have been probable cause.
Yes.
To talk to the dude.
Yeah.
And get DNA. He said, if I was still on duty, he was like, I would write that affidavit up to take it to a judge, to have the judge sign it, to get his DNA. Because I flat out asked him, I said, if I show the judge this video, I said, you as an investigator, if you show the judge that video, he's like, hell yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And it's funny because, I kind of can relate this to Karen's case, and let's just bring that in for a second. All of the activity that happened at 34 Fairview that night, no one goes and knocks on the door. So it's kind of like almost the same situation, in a sense, like, you have this guy that just walked out. We know who he is. We know the relationship between Farwell and Sandra. He leaves, like you said. Why are we not getting DNA or talking to this person a little bit more extensively? Then we have the incident at 34 Fairview with Karen Reed, and no officers go up and, hi, can you explain like what happened? Did you see or hear anything outside? Like, hello. So it's almost like the same thing.
But wait, there's more, Brian, on that. Yeah. Because, two things, and we can add it to the list of parallels between the cases, which one being that the same EMT fireman who pronounced Sandra was also the one who put Karen into the section.
Interesting.
Yes, Daniel Whitley.
One who was really cringe on the stand. That was like, I called him a catty little bitch.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he was very, very obstinate and arrogant about women's mental health. We'll put it that way. And that is definitely a tie-in both cases, because he was very quick to play doctor in both cases, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's a huge issue. The other issue is the want and need to make sure that a police officer is not even mildly inconvenienced during the course of a tragic death. So in the case of, with both the Farwells, their interviews consisted of pulling into a parking lot and asking them a couple of questions. Not in a room, not for any extent of time. Just and Mizzy knows this very well. Both of them were interviewed in parking lots for just a handful of minutes. And it's just that in and of itself, that somebody's lost tragically and that there isn't, I don't know, a more lengthy conversation, or never mind. Somebody doesn't need to be a suspect to be a person of interest or a person who could have information that could help in unveiling the truth about the case. It's bananas.
And you notice it's just all, again, it's those two connecting factors. What do we have? We have law enforcement agents that are corrupt in both cases. So why question it, right? We just go with law enforcement. We go with what they say, and we'll just move on. And then we'll frame everybody. We'll frame Karen Reed in her case. But for Sandra, let's just forget about it and we'll dust it under the carpet because, understandingly, there's a bigger thing going on. There's sexual misconduct. There's underage, things going on in this case. You have a young lady that had a relationship with this police officer for a multitude of years, from a very, very young age up until, she was murdered. So let's just hide all that. And again, it goes back to this, peeling back all the corruption that's going on in these police departments. I've done numerous streams over the last week showing the falters in corruption in the Mass State Police. We need order now. I'm tired of Maura Healey coming out every time a new scandal. Literally, it feels like a new scandal is coming out every other day, right? Am I right? I feel like a new scandal from the Mass State Police comes out every single day, and Maura Healey just gets up in front of the media and says, "Well, we need change. We need oversight. We need real leadership." I'm tired of the talking.
So go ahead, Maura.
Yeah.
You're in charge. You can go ahead.
Exactly. We need action. Words can only say so much, but you need to put things in action and get the ball rolling. That's why you govern our state. That's why you've been represented or voted in by the people of our state. And you're not doing your job. It's just a lot of this going on. But no action. So,
Brian, that could be a whole other episode, by the way, is the press conferences and the lip service, because if you can break all of those down, that's another couple hours right there. And I've got a few names in mind for that. So
and also to go along with that, there's photos of Morrissey and her together. Like there's one where she's her, Morrissey, and I cannot remember pronounce his last name, Shasta, the previous Shastini, the previous I can't even think Stoten police chief. There's a picture of the three of them hugging or in the picture together. I can't remember which one it is. So it's like there's layers and layers on top of layers. I do want to mention something else going back to what you said about Karen being framed. Well, Sandra was also framed too. Sandra was framed in her own murder.
Yeah, you're right.
And I honestly believe if they hadn't pulled off Sandra's case, I don't think they would have had the guts to swing as hard as they did in John, covering up John's case. And going after Karen. They knew, they were like, we got this. We did it a year before. We covered up for
just do it again. Why not?
Well, that's where Proctor's arrogance comes from. His arrogance comes from this is practice. This is not a new thing. And I mean, I call it framed, shamed, and blamed. That's the trifecta that they use against these poor women who are going through these situations.
I agree. By the way, I just want to say this, Jody, welcome to the moderator group. You have earned a wrench. So thank you so much for being a moderator here, and welcome that blue wrench. I also want to do this too. Pebbles, thank you so much for the $10 on Venmo. I appreciate that. All right, let's get back to the hearing here. We got a little ways to go. Great commentary, by the way. Thank you.
Extremely significant, especially in the context of the fact that it appears that there's been some extensive investigation by the state police on maybe this issue. I'm not sure, but I would imagine that there was some investigation on this based on what I can see from Attorney Granda's affidavit. And that is certainly very compelling and important for, again, not just myself, but all the attorneys on this Zoom call.
You're welcome,
to
Jody.
review, because if that is the case, if there is in fact, an alleged murder here, that is certainly extremely exculpatory evidence for all of the defendants on this call, except for Matthew Farwell, of course. But I would imagine it's also important for Matthew Farwell to review, because if he's going to be accused of that, he needs to understand what investigation and what evidence would support something like that, which appears to be in the possession of the state police.
So what's going on? And I want to go back to this again. They're fighting to get all of the case files and the information so they can start spinning a narrative. I'm correct in this, right?
That, and just to have a look into what they have on
Yeah.
them, especially Matthew Farwell.
Mhm.
And especially they want to know, and this is why, you know, it's important to understand that they know Morrissey, that Morrissey wants to know what the FBI is doing also. So this is also another end round for them to get information on what's going on with Morrissey's office and the FBI. What is the FBI up to?
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. Good
That being
commentary.
said,
Thank
Your Honor, that is the reason why we've subpoenaed the Attorney General's office, and the reason why we have made this effort to compel this information from.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bay. Just playing devil's advocate for a minute, isn't the revelation
Love the judge.
or the disclosure from the plaintiff's expert, though, also make it more likely that there's a true need for an ongoing investigatory exemption to be applied?
Well, you raise a good point, Your Honor. That's fair. But it is the plaintiff's expert, Your Honor. So, I'm somewhat speculating whether or not the state police are investigating Matt Farwell as well. I just raised that issue because it's a live issue, Your Honor, and even if there is an ongoing investigation, Your Honor, there is the option of a protective order, Your Honor, that will protect the information from getting out past the attorneys on this call.
All right. Before I turn to Attorney Mackey, just a couple things I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because I think a lot of things have narrowed by virtue of the identification of the categories of documents that the Attorney General has. We've already identified a couple of them or sort of touched on this issue, but I want to sync that up with my notes and make sure all counsel are on the same page and nobody views it differently. The categories that I understand that the Attorney General has identified, I broke down into 4 groups. The Canton Police Department incident report with supplemental narratives, which I understand is really not something that the parties are seeking at this time because they've already been produced. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
I see.
Yes,
All
Your
right, great. The Stoten Police Department internal affairs report. I think everybody is in agreement that that has already been produced, and so the Attorney General would have no need to produce that. Is that accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, then after that, I think what Mr. Bay was addressing, the Massachusetts State Police records, which would consist of the observations and investigative activity of the Massachusetts State Police as identified by the Attorney General's office, witness statements obtained by their investigators, and digital forensic evidence. Does that everybody agree with that in terms of how the Attorney General's office has identified the documents?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And then, so that's still a live issue. And I think the other live issue still is third-party records obtained by the MSP through search warrants. Is that still a live issue for everyone?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I love this judge. I love this judge. She's so good.
Let me turn to Attorney Mackey, and I would invite you to argue however you see fit in terms of the Attorney General's position in the matter, but I am particularly interested in when the last time it was that any investigatory steps were taken in this matter, and I'm hoping you can address that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I apologize for yesterday not being at the hearing. I was unaware, and I appreciate the.
Just so everybody knows, this is the lawyer from the DA's office, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Someone's just asking, I don't understand who all these people are. Okay. What we're watching here is a hearing, obviously, for Sandra Birchmore in the civil case. We just heard from the judge. We have the attorney for the AG's office up in the right-hand portion of the screen. To her left is Matthew Farwell's lawyer. Am I correct on that?
William.
Williams.
William Farwell's. Okay. The gentleman next to him, older gentleman with a tie, is the attorney for Sandra Birchmore's estate. And then I believe Matt Farwell's lawyer is in there somewhere, and Robert Devine's lawyer is in there somewhere as well too. So those are all
the lawyers for Stoten. So that's where all the other lawyers are, is for the town of Stoten.
Stoten and Canton, correct?
No, Canton isn't being sued.
Okay, all right. Canton is not here, and then essentially everybody else kind of on panel, probably with their cameras off, are people that are just listening in to the hearing itself, because you can get the Zoom link and listen to hearings. So I hope that kind of helps people out if you're just coming in and what we're doing today. All right, we'll keep playing through.
Court's flexibility in rescheduling for today. There is an ongoing investigation. It continues to be very active. I would have to, again, consult with my colleague, Michelle Granda, to see the last time that something particularly active occurred, but the investigation is not over. It is not in a stalemate in which it will not continue. There are multiple law enforcement agencies involved in this ongoing investigation. And as you can understand, Your Honor, that each law enforcement agency is reluctant to step on the toes of the other. And to the extent that there is a homicide investigation taking place that, the Attorney General's office is not handling, it would not do anything to interfere with an ongoing homicide investigation. And so while it may not be, currently moving at a quick pace, it doesn't mean that it won't pick up in the very near future. With respect to the state,
I'm less concerned about whether it's moving at a quick pace than whether it's actually moving at all. It's, as you know, the burden's on the agency. There's a presumption that the records are subject to disclosure. The burden's on the agency to prove with specificity that somehow these documents qualify for the exemption. And I've reviewed the affidavit. There are some details, but very few details, and it's not, in my mind, terribly specific about why the agency does not need to disclose or should not have to disclose these documents.
Just get this in here very quick, and I love Scott when he comes in and chimes in. Thanks for being here, Scott. Scott says, Massa Attorney General Andrea Campbell tried to save face. She opened an investigation only after learning the FBI and DOJ were on it. Otherwise, she doesn't do white, doesn't touch fellow Dem meatball.
Oh, can I respond to Scott?
Yeah,
also, great to see you, Scott.
Yeah,
man. So he's right. he's right about that.
Right.
And also I'm a little distrustful of Andrea Campbell, given the amount of trouble that that has been covered up for her brother, a serial rapist. That's kind of a secondary issue in this case. But the other part of it is with regard to what the judge and Lisa Mackey are talking about is Michelle Grande. I don't have her exact title in front of me, but it is in the court documents. And what her specialty is white collar crime. So that means that there is a lot of money involved in this situation. And that is separate and apart from the murder investigation, the potential statutory, all the other cases, the criminal aspect, she said separate agencies, but Michelle Grande, the one that she is representing, is specific to white collar crimes and the monetary aspect of it. So that's an important factor.
Yeah.
Is that those don't, none of these move overnight, but culling through financial records and that type of forensic data is incredibly arduous. So I think it's important for people to know that white collar is a weird way to view this case, but that's a big part of it.
I also think the FBI came to them and said, hey, you guys need to open a case on this. You guys can't take the word of Norfolk DA. This girl was murdered. That's why I feel like she was kind of forced to not.
For me, I just look at stuff that's just so basic. And for me, it's the video. I mean, you have Farwell walking in 25 minutes, and then he leaves, and then a couple days later, Sandra's found dead. No, that doesn't add up to me. Why are you not questioning that person further? You know, and it's just like you go back to even the parallels to Karen Reed's case. Hello, you have a dead and dying police officer on your front lawn. There's a bunch of people in and around here. Do you know anything about that? You know, like, let's knock on a door. Can we come in and look around a little bit? It just, to me, it just doesn't add up. Doesn't add up. But again,
the why could be in the monetary aspect.
Yeah.
Meaning, you know, why is this creepy gentleman protected? Why indeed? There's got to be something at stake that's bigger. Well, not that's bigger, but bigger to them.
Well, no, it is bigger, because what happens is if you question and you catch and you have it on the record, and criminally have this on the record, that either one or all three of these gentlemen, which we know, and I don't even want to call them gentlemen, I'm sorry, all three of these individuals did what they did to Sandra. If we have that on the record and it's criminally held on the record, or even just civilly, it opens up a bigger case, because I'm going to tell you, and I've said this before, she's not the only victim here. There's probably multiple victims in this case. It's not just one child that they did this to. This is years and years of using that program to get close to children, which is just, I mean, psychologically so effed up to even think of anybody doing that or wanting to do anything like that. And I'm telling you, it's a gateway to get into get to these children. And it's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying.
Which, by the way, to add on to that, and this is probably it's maybe a little bit tangential, but the same lawyer who oversees the licensing for Matt Farwell to conduct business as a CDL, operate his trucking business, is a town selectman for Stoten, and it was also, I did some digging this weekend, was someone who originated the certificate for the Explorer program.
Of course.
How many conflict of interest are there in that part alone?
And also, like, to go along with what Suzanne just said, what was it? That was open in January of 2022. That investigation was already going on. It was already going on for a year. They had to, if he's on the select board, he had to have known that this investigation was going on. For him to open up, basically get the license and put it in his name for Matthew Farwell, what is going on there?
Yeah.
Well, the license was issued actually the same month of her death.
Oh, I thought it was January 2000.
Nope. They've had it. It started. The process started the month after her death.
That's crazy.
But the selectman, the attorney involved in it, he's, I guess it's a shareholder, or he oversaw that process, and it's still going strong. Because it's easy to find on mass.gov through what's Galvin's title, Secretary of State. So the licensing is intact. The only reason I looked to see if he was still conducting business, and the attorney who handled that licensure is Stoten Selectman.
And right here, I mean, LJ says that golden handshake. That's what it is. It's all these secret deals that go on behind our backs and get things done. All right, let's keep playing up this hearing here.
Well, the investigation is ongoing. The AGO is in a particularly difficult spot here, where it is trying not to reveal too much to the defendants in this case, to the extent that they will be the targets of the investigation. And so I recognize that the current steps or most recent steps were not identified in terms of what the AGO is doing, but it certainly intends to continue investigating the conduct of the defendants in terms of their criminal conduct. So if there is additional...
Are there any witness interviews scheduled or on the horizon?
God, I love
on the
this
horizon.
One of the things that the AGO, one of the things that was argued in the brief related to how future interviews may be colored if these things are disclosed.
Yes, Your Honor, the AGO does intend to interview witnesses, but like I said, because there's ongoing investigations by other agencies, there is an effort not to jeopardize that and to kind of wait until it's not going to jeopardize another investigation before interviewing those witnesses.
So the general topic of the investigation, so far as I could glean from the brief, related to the relationship between some Stoten officers to Ms. Birchmore prior to her death. That's over 3 years ago now. Is there anything else you can tell us about the subject matter of the investigation?
That would
what
be,
is being
Your Honor,
investigated?
it's the conduct of the defendants in the scope of their jobs as police officers and their relationship with the decedent. And so,
but all of the information on that category, I would guess, has an end date with Ms. Birchmore's death, unfortunately, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So I'm trying to understand any potential new revelations that could prompt some ongoing activity at this point, if that's the scope of the investigation.
This judge is so good. She's so good. I love it.
I do want to say something.
Well, for example, there's
the Attorney General hasn't had that case for that long. It might have been. I know Norfolk DA's office. I don't know exactly when they got the case, but I know Norfolk DA's office was in touch with the Attorney General. Because when I spoke to Farwell, I'm sorry, not Farwell. Jeez, Fanning in the fall of last year, he said they're in contact with the AG, but I don't think they've even had the case for a full year yet. That's what I believe.
Really?
No, they had to take it.
No, I understand they had to take it, but they still, the Norfolk DA's office, when I talked to Fannin in October of 2023, they still had the case.
But they weren't, my understanding, and we could probably do a timeline on that. There's a point where, okay, you guys obviously aren't doing the right thing with this, so we're going to go ahead and take it from you. And that's part of this. And if it sounds like Lisa Mackey is being, vague or evasive at all, it's not that at all. It's that she's saying what she's saying, and there's a lot in between the lines. But if she says more, then she's showing her cards. And so that's what I love about her, is that the judge who, like, to your point, Brian, is being very pointed and thorough and accurate, because some of it has to come out.
Yeah.
But Lisa Mackey is saying, like, hold on a second. Yes, we'll answer your questions, but also we're not showing our cards, because we're not letting these assholes know what we're doing before we can actually go in for the kill. And that's really important. And that's what's important about her argument.
And Suzanne, they know what they did. They just want to know what, the Attorney General has on them and the feds have on them, so they can start their counterattack and say, oh no, I wasn't there, or this is fabricated, or what it may be. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But hey, listen, they know what they did. I mean, this is so open and cut to me. I mean, but it's just going to take a little bit, I think, to get the ball rolling in this. And it does look like, from this hearing, things are going to start rolling. And then obviously we have another hearing on Tuesday, which is fantastic. All right, let's keep playing here.
I'm sorry. The hearing on Tuesday is for the Post Commission, for them losing, because Devine and William Farwell still have their they don't have their license, but it's like a temporary thing.
Right.
Their license hasn't fully been taken away. So they're going through the Post Commission right now to fully lose their license to be able to operate as.
Nevertheless, they're important hearings for sure. There will be some detail discussed in them for sure.
And that's they're kind of almost in limbo, because they can't get everything they need, because there's so much in the civil case that has been I forget the word, where it's basically nobody else can see it but impounded. So they can't get a lot of stuff. So it's like this, like, different investigations aren't being able to see everything into the case yet.
Right. Now, good points. All right, let's keep playing.
There's a question of whether there was, inappropriate sexual conduct that occurred here, and in terms of the dates and the activities and et cetera. So that's another element of this investigation, as well as, the public corruption question as to the defendants during that time.
All right. Obviously, the question of would the release probably so prejudice the possibility of effective law enforcement that such disclosure would not be in the public interest. Obviously, there's a significant public interest at stake when there's allegations of police officers engaging in these practices. And so the public interest in disclosure of the documents is significant. I understand that the public interest for any law enforcement investigation to be able to be pursued without being undermined is also significant. And I understand that the targets of the investigation are the people that are seeking disclosure, and that makes this case somewhat different from most of the cases that the parties rely upon. But in some respects, it doesn't really matter because of the case law, the standard is the same. I
Yes,
think
Your
everybody's in
Honor.
agreement with that, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. And if I can just point out the distinction between the public interest and investigations of police misconduct, this is an ongoing criminal investigation, not internal affairs investigation. I think the case cited by, that was cited in the most recent issue where this came up involving, and the name of the case is escaping me, I'll bring it up in a second, was a shooting involving police officers, and they had been cleared. There had been some sort of resolution from the district attorney's office at that point. And so the ongoing nature of the criminal investigation was over. The ongoing internal affairs investigation was continuing. And
What's that?
Can you pause for a sec? Because she just referenced the case with the
That's
shooting.
Justin Root, right?
That was the Mack case.
Okay.
The Eric Mack case is actually incredibly important in terms of setting precedent for sort of forcing the hand of transparency. And I think that was a Bristol County case where another botched DA situation. But they were definitely, some of the hiding of or burying of evidence was reversed in that case. And it was absolutely precedent setting. So I've actually read it. It's a heavy read, but it is an important case in case anybody wants to look into that in terms of shifting the narrative of, you can't really call a law enforcement agents into question because it has that chilling effect. If they wouldn't be able to investigate if they're under scrutiny, blah, blah, blah. I don't mean to blah, 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 because it's all really important. What I'm saying is that the Mack case was actually created a decision in that regard, and that's why she's referencing it. It's kind of funny that she isn't remembering the name, but she'll circle back to it.
For sure.
Also, I'm going to go off camera for a minute because I'm having a power surge because of light. I just need to shut something off.
No, you got it. Take your time. Yeah. If you want to answer
that question on the screen.
Yeah, I was if you want to answer it, Mizzy.
Well, first, Matthew Farwell, none of them were troopers. They were actually Stoten police officers. Yeah. But no, he refused to give his DNA. So his DNA was not tested. And that was one of my biggest points in this. If it was anybody else and they saw the way that person walked in and out of the Sandra's apartment building, they would have taken that video to a judge, and a judge would have signed a warrant to get that person's DNA.
Right. Yeah.
But because he was a police officer and he knew these people, Fanning, who was investigating the case, was a former Stoten police officer who, just like Michael Proctor, shouldn't have been on the case. He should have went and got a warrant to get the DNA to test it.
Right.
Because not just the baby, but to get test items. Was his skin on whatever was used to tie the ligature?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Do you know if they Well, no, they didn't, because he wasn't a suspect, but he might have had an injury on him, a scratch injury, or when victims fight back,
Yeah.
like you said, there could have been skin underneath Sandra's
Nails.
nails, and they didn't do any of that investigating because it was ruled a suicide. So,
And Dr. Bodden said there was a rape kit done. They had the DNA from the baby, and that the Norfolk DA's office came out and said we still have stuff that can be tested. So go for it, test it.
yeah, let's do it. Let's get to it. Right. Let's get it on.
He wants to redeem himself a little bit. Let's go.
Right. I agree. All right, let's keep playing the hearing here.
So there, the court decided that it was in the public interest to release the information because it was an internal affairs investigation. And in that circumstance, the public interest with respect to the misconduct of police officers trumps their need for privacy. And the whole, witnesses being candid and coming forward didn't apply where all of the witnesses that are being interviewed are fellow police officers or police officers that were at the scene of a shooting. Here, it is different. It is the state police observations with respect to an unattended death, and all of the statements and forensic evidence given to the state police regarding an unattended death is still ongoing in terms of the criminal portion of the investigation. I'm not privy to the subpoena that was served on the state police last year, so I can't speak
I have to get going, and I have to hear this.
I remember that.
I can't speak to what the response was there, but we're unaware of the state police records being turned over, or that unattended death investigation has concluded. So it would not be in the public interest to disclose to the defendants in this case all of the witness statements made in an ongoing criminal investigation, both into their sexual relationship with the decedent, as well as the question as to whether or not this is a homicide investigation, and then the other instances of criminal element that occurred in terms of their conduct as police officers.
All right. I understand, particularly with the disclosure of the expert report, some of the concerns about whether or not there'd be an ongoing homicide investigation. I have difficulty understanding how investigation into incidents that extend to longer than 3.5 years ago are ongoing at this point and continue to be investigated. I'm struggling with, Ms. Mackey. And while I understand your point about the criminal investigation versus the internal affairs investigation, it still doesn't get around the fact that the public interest in any allegations of this kind of conduct on behalf of police officers is high. So in looking at whether or not the agency has met its burden, that's one of the things I'm considering. Okay, well, let me just sort of cut to the heart of some of these issues. Certainly in the criminal aspect, I think this is much less common on the civil side of litigation. It is not uncommon to have limited disclosures involving protective orders where lawyers are not allowed to even share information with their clients. Why would that not be an appropriate way to move forward in this case?
Again, it's a protective order that limits the actual clients in this case from getting the documents, I think would still be prejudicial, as it is ongoing. And now people other than law enforcement know what all the witnesses said as law enforcement investigation continues. And with respect to the timeline of 3.5 years, Your Honor, the AG's office did not respond to the wellness check, did not conduct the unattended death investigation. And so the timing in which the AG's involvement began was much, much later. And so, it's not that the AG's office has been sitting on this investigation for 3 years. It's that it came to the AG's office later as potential criminal conduct that needed to be investigated.
Well, do you know what the timeline on that is? Because I'm still, I wish we had the answer to the question of when some actual investigative activity has actually occurred, but we don't have that answer. Do you know when investigative activity actually began?
I mean, when the case was referred to the AG's office, I would say is when it began from the district attorney's office.
When was that?
I'd have to go back into my notes and look, Your Honor. I'm happy to supplement our motion or our position.
All right. What I'd like to hear from other counsel in the case, Mr. Marullo, it's my understanding that the plaintiff has assented to Mr. Bay's motion, correct?
That is correct, Your Honor. As Your Honor pointed out, my client and her baby have been deceased now for over 3.5 years. And an answer that it's under investigation after 3.5 years is not sufficient. The cases that are cited by the Attorney General's office actually weigh in the favor of the movement and the assenting parties, because they say that there is a procedure to be followed when documents are sought. The procedure is that the parties try to work out what documents can be presented, and then the resisting party, let's call it, provides a list to the court of what documents are not being presented, and then the court has the discretion of deciding what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. At this point, we don't even know what the Attorney General's office is investigating. We don't know whether it's investigating corruption within the Stoten police, corruption within the Canton police, whether the district attorney did an appropriate job at investigating this matter. At this point, my clients want some answers, and to be thrown a curveball that, well, it's an ongoing investigation, simply doesn't cut it.
Oh, I love that.
And we are aware that
So
there's
good.
actually a superseding investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the U.S. Attorney's Office. We don't know exactly what that is, but maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's not. It should not be an obstacle for my client and the decedents to be able to move forward with this matter simply because they keep saying it's a matter under investigation. The Reinstein case is clear, the Rayfuse case is clear, the Bugas case is clear, the Boston Globe case is clear, that active investigations is not a carte blanche to keeping all records from the parties in a civil action or in any action.
Can you pause there, Brian?
So,
Yeah, please pause there.
Well, I wanted to pause there for a specific thing. Mizzy might have a different one, but Brian, you probably remember this coming up in Karen's case when Bev got all giddy about the Boston Globe reporter.
We just talked about that today at
So
lunch.
here's another parallel. So I mean, well cited by this attorney for sure, particularly after he got poked a little bit for the whole AI. He faced some sanction for bad case citations midstream, and that was the first time I have heard of that happening. But I think that happened with Karen Reed's case too, was sort of using AI to pull together, case citations just as a matter of efficiency. It turns out you can't do that. You got to use your law clerks to read.
Right. Yeah.
I think Mizzy had a different point to make about that, but I just wanted to point out that the whole citation of that what he was talking about with the Globe did present itself in the Karen Reed case as well.
No, yeah. I remember it was funny. We were just at lunch today. I was with Kelly Reed and a couple of us after the standout. We went and got some sandwiches and kind of cooled off. And we were just talking about Karen's case. And we were talking about all the people that Judge Bev got giddy with. And that was one of the people that she was like melting over. And we were just talking about that. Let me just get to this really quick. Shari D, thank you so much. $13. I've never seen a $13 super chat, but that's pretty cool. Mizzy Miz, thanks for keeping Sandra's name alive. Thank you. And by the way, lady in Boston, welcome to the mod squad. You got a blue wrench. Thank you for being here. Someone recommended you, so I'm going to give you a mod squad wrench. I like that, mod squad. That's cool. Kat Randall, thank you for gifting a membership to a lucky member here in the room. I appreciate that. And then Swifty's asking, so how is Suzanne on the panel? She's very involved and very sharp. Well, she's one of the moderators in the Justice for Sandra Birchmore Facebook group. So if you're not over there, make sure you're subscribed over there. And what are you, over 10,000, 10,000, right?
We're almost at 12.
Almost 12.
Yeah.
Great.
So if you're not on there, please go follow us so we can hit our mark for 12.
Yeah.
Suzanne comes to a lot of the standouts. Her and I like talk a lot. We have very, very long phone calls and go over a lot of stuff together. She's one of the moderators over on the page. So she's,
and I drive everybody crazy with the 3 a.m. What do you call it? Inspirations that I find in the case, because I'm constantly trying to find new angles that will bring justice and light to this case, because there are just too many. There's just too many things. It's a matter in general. It's a matter of it's a euphemism that I use a lot when people ask me this. Accidental activism. That's how Mizzy and I came to be acquainted and be friends. And I couldn't be more honored that I was, brought in to the justice group.
It's funny that you said that, Suzanne, because I said that today, being out at the standout and being out there with all those wonderful people that are out supporting Karen Reed. I mean, this has changed my life. I've met so many honorable people. I've met so many respectful people. I haven't met one bad person through this entire movement, and all the people that I've come in contact with. Everybody is gracious. Everybody is nice. Everybody is supportive. I've had people that have reached out and they say, hey, I worked in a studio or I had camera gear, or I was a photographer. If you ever need anything, reach out. I've had Tom CPU over here a couple times, ironing out some camera stuff. Everybody's so willing and giving. And that's what's really amazing about this. So I always say, get out in community activism, be active in your community. You will meet amazing, like-minded people.
And a lot of great resources too.
Yeah. And you meet so many great people. And on top of that, I've gotten to talk to lawyers. I've gotten to talk to, awesome, YouTubers that make great content. I've gotten to talk to really smart, engaging people like yourselves that are on this panel today that really take these cases and bite into them and get in and peel back those onion layers so we can all see it. Because again, I'm new to this, so I'm just coming in, but I've learned so much probably over the 5 or 6 streams that I've done in Sandra's case. And it's just becoming very obvious and, obvious to me what's going on. And like we said, we did the previous stream to this. There's a lot of parallels, and thank God for, that the FBI now has gotten involved in both these cases and said, something going on here, and it's all slowly starting to come out. So, it honestly started with the people, and Turtle Boy really rumbling the pavement here and getting this going and getting people tuned in. And I don't want people to forget about him. I would not be here in the position today if it was not for Turtle Boy. So I'm always so grateful and gracious of that. And I'm very honored that he has accepted me kind of in this, YouTube's creator space and movement. And he's always been very kind to me and nice to me every time I've seen him. Look, we all do our individual things. I have my channel, he has his, and and everybody knows all the people that I support and the other platforms. But it's been very life-changing for me, and I'm sure it is for all of you too. We've met.
Well, and also thank you to Karen Reed and the whole Reed camp for just the implosion of public access, public attention, public scrutiny that was so desperately needed in Sandra's and a lot of different cases. Once you see it, you can't look away.
You can't unsee it.
And here we are.
Yeah.
And I want to add to that. I appreciate everybody who's come to look at Sandra's case from the Karen Reed side. There's a lot of people like Scott McGinnis. He's come to almost all the standouts. He was one of the early people supporting me, and he would push it in chat rooms on YouTube streamers. He would push it up, mention Sandra all the time. He's somebody that, has always been there for Sandra's case, and there's a bunch of people probably in your chat that are like that too.
Yeah.
But also to add to it, just because I'm somebody who has a lot of health issues and I can't be out there like all the time, and know that just because you can't be on the ground and, in the streets doing activism, there are ways to do it, from home. I do most of my activism from my lazy boy chair. It's sharing things, it's reposting things,
Right.
filling out, forms and writing and calling. So that part aspect is very, very important. And I am so thankful for all the free Karen Reed people who have allowed me to kind of grab on Karen's skirt to fly in the wind along with the case, because I've gotten a lot out of her case, and her fighting has also been fighting for Sandra, because her case has brought a lot of eyes to Sandra's case. And there's not, you can even tell with how that Dr. Bodden's information was released when there was a lull, when there was excuse me, everybody was waiting to find out what was going on in Karen's case. They dropped that bomb because they knew excuse me, all the media was there.
Yeah.
So that was very strategic and well played on his part. And kudos to that. The timing, I mean, I can remember that news dropping just as I can remember all the pivotal moments in the Karen Reed case. It was just like, okay, holy shit. And now, here we are. I mean, it's a whole, the veil has really been pulled off of this case. It should have been pulled off a long time ago, to this fine judge's point. But there was a lot of resistance along the way. I mean, you had the agencies that were supposed to be doing the investigating, and I don't know if I'm even at liberty to say this, but obviously intentionally botching it. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, we've heard that before. All right, and again, I mean, it's I appreciate it, and like I said, when you start rumbling enough cages, or this, what is it, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you start squeaking that wheel, people will tune in, and we need these platforms to keep pushing this this case. It's very, very important. The most important aspect of this is that it involved a child at a certain point that was groomed to a certain age, up to a certain age, up to her death, and that's by a police officer, and it's wrong. And this really needs to get to some criminal level where the people that are involved in this are held responsible, because a case like Sandra's can never happen again, especially here in Massachusetts, but across the world. If we can make a difference and change laws and let people know about this situation, it's just going to benefit everything in the end. So this can't happen again. It can never happen again. It's tragic. It's truly tragic.
Regardless of whether the defendants may or may not be targets, we don't even know that at this point, because that's unclear. But there has to be some movement, because the civil case has to be moved along.
So it sounds to me, Mr. Murillo, beyond dissenting, you're actually joining in the motion.
Absolutely joining in the motion, Your Honor. All we want is the truth.
Can you stop it, Brian?
We don't care what the truth shows.
Because I didn't get to say what I wanted to say about him. He made me very, very angry when I first saw this. I understand he wants the stuff. I understand he wants everything that they have. But to me, he should have just said, Your Honor, I will let you, use your best judgment. Because to me, it's a bad look when he's saying, yeah, I'll take it. We don't even know if they're investigating. I don't know. To me, it was just, it was a bad look. I personally think that he should have just said, whatever I'll leave it up to you, Your Honor. I have my faith in you, Your Honor, however he would have worded it. But I personally think it was a bad look for him to,
Agree.
Because it made it sound like her civil case is more important than these men being charged. And they're both important. They're both very important.
Right.
But these men being behind bars is more important.
Most important thing.
Than the civil case.
Right.
Because these men being behind bars stops another child from being
right.
hurt.
No,
stops
you're right.
Another woman from being hurt.
Yep.
100%. So that's
100%.
just my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, great. It's good stuff. I agree on all levels. All right, here we go. We'll keep playing through this.
All right. Does anybody else wish to be heard? I will turn to the topic of the attorney-client privilege in a minute, but I was focusing primarily on the investigatory exemption at this point. Does anybody else want to be heard on that? Okay. With respect to the claimed attorney-client privilege, it seems to me, Mr. Bay, and I'll put this question out to Mr. Murillo as well, since you've joined in the motion. It seems to me that to the extent any documents exist involving, memoranda, for example, strictly summarizing conversations or the thought processes of counsel involved, I don't think those would be relevant to the civil case or material to the civil case. And I'm not certain whether or not they would qualify as public records. I think I'd have to conduct an evidentiary hearing in that regard. And if they do qualify as public records, then there's the next question of whether or not they qualify for an exemption or a privilege in some respect. And the reason I throw those thoughts out there is because I'm not sure if we can narrow this a little bit further in terms of what's in dispute. Because even if we have a prosecutor or somebody else making all sorts of statements about their thoughts, I don't see a way that you folks could use that in the civil case. And I don't think that needs to be at issue in this motion, but I'm putting it out there to see if we can get to some consensus about that, or if that is an issue that we need to spend a lot of time on.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would tend to agree with Your Honor that the analysis of the information by the Attorney General's office is not something that I think would be overly helpful in this case. I still do struggle with who is the client in this attorney-client relationship. I think would probably better categorized as work product. But we are interested in facts, investigatory facts. We're not interested in an attorney's thoughts about those facts. So as far as narrowing the scope, I don't think that's a problem if you're going to be excluding the Attorney General's thoughts regarding the facts that it's been provided.
Mr. Murillo, does anybody else wish to weigh in on that?
Well, Your Honor, that the question you raised goes to the very core of what I'm saying, which is, frankly, we don't know what we don't know. And in terms of categories of items and documents and so on, we can focus on that one item. But frankly, there might be many more items out there that don't clearly fit in any category. And I think it's the Reinstein case, which points out.
Well, right at the moment, I'm just focusing on this one item because I'm trying to narrow what the issues really are.
We're not interested in the Attorney General's analysis or thoughts on what's going on.
All right.
Quiet there.
I think to a large extent that would address some of the issues the Attorney General has raised under the category of attorney-client privilege. Do I have that right, Attorney Mackey?
Yes, Your Honor. And to the extent that the AGO's office has identified the categories of documents that it has not identified, memos or witness interview notes or anything of the nature. It is records that were created and are maintained by separate law enforcement agencies. And so there wouldn't be anything relevant within the Attorney General's office's communication between and amongst assistant attorney generals regarding these facts. It would all be, regarding this case, it would all be just communications with an analysis and the thoughts of the AAGs.
Have you personally been through the records that would qualify as the Massachusetts State Police records as you've categorized them, and the third-party records obtained through search warrants?
I have not, Your Honor.
So you can't represent to me how voluminous those records are?
It's not that voluminous, and I think one of the concerns we also have is that we do not have the entire state police investigation. So we may have portions of it, but not all of it. So I don't know the number of pages, but we have the interview notes and the interviews and the observations of the state police with respect to the unattended death investigation, but we don't know if we have everything.
Well, the comments that or the arguments that is put forth by Mr. Murillo and Mr. Bay regarding the agency's response in terms of, just continually saying it's an ongoing investigation, I tend to agree with them that really it's hard for me to understand how this is an ongoing investigation. I know that's not all the only question here, but in this particular case, that seems to be the primary issue as to whether or not the exemption applies or does not apply. I know in some of the cases that you folks have cited to, we've seen voir dires of detectives. We've seen in-camera or potential for in-camera review. We've seen a whole host of things that has been done by the agency, or evidence has been put forth by the resisting agency to establish that the investigation is truly an ongoing investigation and that the disclosure could hinder the investigation or would not be in the public's interest. I don't think the agency has quite established that with the affidavits that have been set forth and the arguments that have been set forth. However, I am concerned, and just as the lawyers representing the parties in this matter have expressed concerns that we don't know what we don't know, I also have a concern about some of the issues raised by the AG's office, particularly in light of some of the recent reports regarding the cause of Ms. Birchmore's death. I do not want any investigations to be compromised by a wholesale disclosure of these records. I mean, one option is potentially an in-camera review, but I'm interested to hear from the parties of their thoughts on that.
Your Honor, if I may answer, that's one of the troubles, the problems that the AGO has, is it has to find the line between identifying the category and stating why it's not in the public interest to disclose, while still maintaining the integrity of the investigation and not saying, next week, these are the 3 witnesses that are going to be interviewed by the AGO's office, by the AGO, and or, the grand jury is going to convene, tomorrow. Well,
there's some room between those two extremes, though, right? I mean, I wasn't asking who you had interviewed last. I just wanted to know when, and I don't have that answer, or whether or not there were even any other future witnesses scheduled or on the horizon, and I don't have that answer. All I have is that they intend to interview some more people, which is pretty vague, non-specific response, and a general intention is not the same as truly an ongoing investigation. So I'm trying to get at the heart of that without, recognizing that it's the agency's responsibility to come forward with some specificity to demonstrate that the records meet the exemption. And I don't really think that's clear to me at all. But I know there's some support in the case. Let us say that on a close call, one of the things I can do is order an in-camera review.
And the AGO would accept that and be able to provide the court with more specific information as to the activity that took place in terms of the investigation, why it has stalled for a period of time, not to be expected to be very long, but to make sure that the AGO does not undermine the integrity of other law enforcement investigations into this matter. And so if the court thinks that's appropriate, we could certainly participate in an in-camera review to further discuss the specifics.
And I think it would be helpful to me to get, as I think you're just suggesting, from the AG, not just the bare documents, but also an explanation as to why they feel the documents, and perhaps this will have to be broken down by each document or at least each category, could does meet the exemption, I should say. Let me hear from other counsel about that thought as a way to move forward. Mr. Bay, Mr. Marule, let me start with you folks.
Your Honor, I think that's a reasonable way to resolve this close call. Certainly, I have no objection to that. In-camera review.
Mr. Marule.
I agree, Your Honor. I'd like to see it done with not just broad categories, but a list of documents. We're informed that there aren't that many documents. They're not that voluminous, so it wouldn't be that hard to make a list, even if it's redacted, so it doesn't actually identify.
Oh, what I'm contemplating is actually getting the documents, not just a category. What I'm suggesting is that it would be my preference, and I don't think any of the counsel for the parties would object to this. It would be my preference to assist the court for the Attorney General's office to provide with the documents an explanation as to how they feel each document or why each document meets the exemption and should not be disclosed, because obviously looking at it in a vacuum may be more difficult from getting some explanation of the broader picture of what's going on for me, to assist me.
I absolutely agree with that procedure, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Attorney Welsh, Attorney Lowe, Attorney Braskier, does anybody have any other thoughts?
No, Judge, I don't. I would agree with it as well.
Okay. Ms. Mackey, would you be able to do that within the next 30 days?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And I think from there we determine how we proceed and whether or not things need to be under seal and pounded in terms of the motion practice that may result thereafter. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So what's the date 30 days from now that we should give the Attorney General's office a deadline?
That would be August 12th, which is a Monday.
So can you, if you could give me and again, we do not need the Stoten Internal Affairs report. I don't want any documents that are not in dispute. We don't need any documents that are exclusively reflective of thought processes of any lawyers on the case. But we do need the MSP investigatory materials and the third-party records that were obtained through search warrants.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Anything else that we should address today?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor.
No, Judge.
All right. Thank you all.
That's it.
That is it.
That's one of the first steps. I love it. I love it. So the
Did
next.
anybody catch the mention of a grand jury?
Right towards the end.
Yeah. She said she didn't say there was specifically a grand jury, but she said kind of something. I can't remember the exact wording, but if we had somebody testifying for the grand jury, or if the grand jury, she said something about the grand jury.
Mm-hmm.
She said if. Yeah, she presented it as an if. Now, I don't necessarily want to speculate on that, but I definitely feel like that's relative to the whole white collar angle. I think we all want it to be about the criminal and everybody being held accountable for what was done specifically to Sandra. But the vested interest in the powers that be, so to speak, is more about the financial corruption and the abuse of, the time, the money, the resources, doing these things on the clock. And there could be even more than that, since we were talking about the the licensure of Matt Farwell's trucking business. There's so many layers to this, and I think that's a big one, is the financial part.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it were more about caring, about the loss of her life and her abuse leading up to. But the money tends to be where the investigative work goes.
Interesting. And I just want to answer this. Do we have Sandra's DNA or the baby's DNA? We do not.
Well, Dr. Bodden mentioned in his I guess in the letter that they did have the baby's DNA. Because I checked with Barb because I can't get into the Boston Globe article anymore. But she went back and looked and she said, yes, they have the baby's DNA.
Well, they said that it was said as a matter of the case, but it's also a matter of just general procedure that in a death like that, it's extracted and retained. Whether or not anything's done with it has to do with the case, and whether or not anybody else is compelled is another issue entirely. We already know that Matthew Farwell said no to that, but that doesn't mean that any of them have been compelled to do it.
Yeah. If you have nothing to hide, then why are you hiding your DNA? Why
well,
not?
his lawyer
Especially
said,
if you're not a cop anymore. I mean, it would make
Yeah.
sense if you were still a cop, then it makes sense that you don't want to be in the system. It puts you at some higher risk, but he's not a cop anymore.
Yeah.
his lawyer said when they asked for the DNA, said specifically, well, he's just a witness in this case. Why do you need DNA?
Unreal.
Like they said, they could have compelled to get his DNA, or they could have got it other avenues where they, follow him to a restaurant or grab his garbage.
Of course. I mean, we just saw that with the Rex Heuermann case, the Long Island serial killer, which in my opinion, which is crazy. I would have thought that more people would have been interested in this case. That guy is literally going to go down as the most prolific serial killer of all time. It's scary. There are multiple. I'm going to say there are hundreds of victims in that case. They are finding, young women and young men everywhere along Long Island right now and connecting this guy to a lot of those cases. This is going to be a crazy case. And it's funny. I did lives on it. Thought people would be interested. Nope. I'm like, this is like, you're going to see movies and documentaries and a lot of stuff in the Rex Heuermann case, but we'll just keep focused on what we're doing here. Justice for Karen, for John, and for Sandra Birchmore and her unborn baby, because that's very important. I want to do this. I'm going to wrap up here in a minute. First of all, I just want to thank both my guests for coming back on tonight, Mizzy and Suzanne, for their vast knowledge of the Sandra Birchmore case. I am learning more every time we have the opportunity to do this. So I appreciate both of you coming here on the panel for simplifying this, breaking it down, and letting the chat and the audience being able to kind of, soak all this in and understand it at a comfortable level. Because sometimes a lot of the lawyer talk and legal talk gets a little hard for people to follow. But before I go off air, I just want to do this really quick. I don't know if you all know, but I have up an actually working website now. And you can go over here to LTL Media News. I'll drop the link in the chat for all of you. And I'd love for you to just go in and look at what I've been doing here. Just for instance, I'm going to click on Karen Reed here on the front page. So as I'm kind of uploading streams and giving summaries about them, I'll post if someone comes in, we'll do a summary. So you have a summary of the episode, and then you can come over to the right-hand side and actually watch the episode itself. And what it will do is as the new episode drops, it'll compound, and the latest episode will be on top of the page itself. I just started doing some Sandra Birchmore. Obviously, I'll have this summarized and put on the page as well. We want to keep that case current. And then you can go to local news, things that I've done here in the local news and the national news as well. And this is another case that I want to start jumping back into, Sonia Massey. Lots to go over in that case. And then I have all my affiliated links, YouTube, you can donate or shop. If you want to contact me through the website, and then you can connect all my socials on the right-hand side. So pretty simplified website, but something that's up and going, and I can keep recapping the cases. I don't have time to write right now because I work full-time and I do this full-time. So it's tough for me to go down, but if I can summarize the episodes for everybody, give them an idea of the things that we talked about, and then you can watch it, I'd love it. But I want to start driving some traffic to that site so we can get it into the Google algorithm so people can learn about these cases that we're talking about and be able to go there. So I think I just saw it. Oh, Pat, thank you so much again for gifting a membership. And Patty, thank you so much for becoming a new member. I appreciate that. And then I missed one at the very, very beginning of the stream. Galen, thank you so much for becoming a new member as well. And if you don't know about Members Access, you can go to my homepage on YouTube. scroll all the way to the bottom. You get all the members only content. And I do members only. I need to start doing that more. Maybe I set a certain night that I do that and give back to the members. And it's a much laid back stream. We kind of just Q&A it, and it's a lot of fun and backstage. So again, to both of my two guests, thank you so much for being here. We will continue to talk about Sandra's case. And I told both of them, Mizzy and Suzanne, anytime you need a platform, you have a home here at LTL. And then maybe one day we can get both of you in the studio and actually do a live session in here.
We appreciate you having us again.
Yeah, sure. Any parting words before we head out? Standout again is what?
Doing what you're doing in the standout, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, standout on the 25th of August. It's a Sunday at 2 to 5 in Canton, at the Canton Town Hall. And also, please go to our website, thejusticeforsandrabirchmore.com. You can get to the Facebook page there, and you can also get to my X page that I have for Sandra.
You still say Twitter.
You know, I call it Twitter, but X page from there too. And if you know, whichever one you prefer being on, you can follow and get updates and come help spread Sandra's story from either page.
Mm-hmm. I want to let everybody know I have a surprise guest coming in the next couple of weeks. I'm just ironing out all the details, and I think you will all be blown away when I have this guest, and they will be live in studio. So it's going to be about another 2.5 weeks. We're going to iron out the details, and I will get that special guest here in the studio, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun when I have them in here. So again, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for the support. God, what an amazing day for Karen Reed, and everybody did such a fantastic job. I'm going to come back tomorrow night and I think recap all the standouts. We'll look through some photos and videos of all the standouts for tomorrow and have some fun with that. And Karen, if you are watching the stream, thank you so much for coming out today and, and just touching base with everybody. You don't even know some of the people that were even just at the Dighton stand that people that drove by and saw Karen there, they stopped just to get out and meet her for a quick second and take a photo. And you literally made their day. There was one girl that was like literally shaking. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm meeting Karen. I mean, you are a rock star and people love you and we love you here and we will continue to support you. I'm just going to get these on the way out so I'm not rude. John, thank you so much. You said, thank you, Brian, Mizzy, and Suzanne. Going to watch the replay back now. Loved your film from the standout yesterday, brother. We love you all. Thank you. Thank you to my Aussie friend and, LJ using her 2-month membership. Thank you. She said, when was this hearing, please? What was the date of this hearing? I forget.
7/12/24.
7/12. Yeah. So just recent. And then the next one will be this Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. So we might be able to obtain a recording of that. And if we do, we can come back and talk through that because that's going to have a lot of important information in it as well. All right, everybody, we are going to get out of here. It's getting a little bit late. I appreciate you all being here and I'll see you on the next stream. Take care. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.